I am Nick Shell, the living legend of hair loss. It probably throws you off when on your phone you get a notification, oh, Nick Shell uploaded a new video. But it's not about hair loss. It doesn't say hair loss, receding hairline, diffuse, it doesn't, atheist. Why is it talking about atheists? That's not what I'm watching him for. And basically it's this concept. I want to be able to talk about lots of things and not just be kind of put in a corner of only talking about one thing, which has largely led to my 3-month sabbatical, where I was just so tired of talking about the same thing. So I wanted to see what would happen if I never talked about it again. And what I found is, for me, even though I don't personally care about the topic of hair loss, I learned that I still like talking about it if I know that I'm helping other people. And now that I've returned, I'm like, that was such a confirmation for me, returning from my sabbatical, like, wow, I am helping people. I mean, I am no expert. I am only an entertainer. I just have a high emotional intelligence and able to communicate with people, especially younger people. Speaking of younger people, and speaking of Spider-Man, Far From Home that I keep talking about, in the newest Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man, the character, is 16 years old. And the guy who ends up being Mysterio, who's played by Jake Gyllenhaal, which I think he and I are like the same age. So it's funny to see that he is some sort of mentor role to Spider-Man. And the age difference is basically identical to the age difference between me and you, because a lot of you guys are 16 watching my channel. So I think that's interesting. Now, what should this video actually be about? I think here's what I intended for it to be about. Yeah, this is how I got on this. I was saying that, yeah, a lot of the videos on this channel now, post-sabbatical, now I have nothing to do with hair loss, and I'm going to keep it that way. I want to explore other little mini series that I can really focus on to cater to other people on the internet that will never care about hair loss, but I can cater to them and speak their language as well. So I'm making these videos basically having conversations but never debates with atheists. I never debate with them about God, but I have conversations with atheists. And I think that's, for me, it's challenging. It's a personal challenge that I enjoy. And when you are challenged, you grow as a person. But as you see those wash up on your channel there, if you've watched any, something you see about me, despite whatever kind of character I'm playing on YouTube, whatever kind of persona that I create in order to further communicate with people that watch my videos, you will see that I am explicitly a Christian guy, a religious guy that is serious about my faith. That's who I am as a person. So there's your three, like, what? Okay, so when does this video start? Like, we're like 3 minutes into the video. This isn't even matching up to what was in the title. What? Okay, so here we are, 3 minutes into it. We needed all that. So here's the deal. With that being said, and there's the 3-minute mark. I was at church this morning. It's Sunday in real life for me. I went to church this morning, and one of the pastors there at the church, I guess he's like the youth pastor. He's a guy, I'd say mid-20s, maybe late 20s. He's the youth minister there, and he is a black man. Yes, and I can say black man. I don't have to say African American. I've made videos about this before on my channels, on both of my channels, Mother Being Family Friendly Daddy Blog, saying, am I supposed to say African American or can I say black? And I've learned that black people say, yeah, you can just say black. Who wants me to say African American? White people. White people want me to say African American. They get offended on behalf of black people. Meanwhile, black people are like, no, you can just say black, we're black. It's similar to how on my other channel, Family Friendly Daddy Blog, I've made some generalizations about ethnic backgrounds of other people, like Jewish people, for example. I undeniably have Jewish heritage on my mom's side, and something I have said unapologetically, I would say, everybody knows that typically Jewish people are good with finding creative ways to make money, and with that money, they're good at managing and investing that money. And I believe that is in my DNA, in my genes. I'm the same way. And granted, subconsciously I saw it through my mom and then her father, because that was the lineage it came through. I mean, for centuries, Jewish people had to be creative, because it was interesting, because for both Christians and Muslim people, they were not allowed to charge interest on loans. But Jewish people didn't have that rule, so they could. But they were also ostracized, and as they were kicked out of one country to the next, they had to always be creative and manage money. So this stereotype about Jewish people being good with money, not simply being rich, but being good with money, being able to create it, manage it, invest, all these things, There's a reason for that stereotype. And I'm even going to go here too. On my other channel, I said this about black people. I said, I have observed in my lifetime that black people are typically more patient than everybody else. And I made a video, I thought this might be kind of iffy because I sure couldn't say this on Twitter. And what I realized is black people were happy that I said that, and they quickly explained, well, culturally, for centuries, there was reasons they had to be patient because there were so many rules discriminating them. Their patience became basically one of their superpowers. And I still recognize that about black people today. In general, they're absolutely more patient than the rest of us. So those are positive stereotypes. But what's funny is, on the channel when I talked about the Jewish people being good with money, people started getting offended on the internet. They get offended and said, you can't say that about Jewish people, you're a racist. Aside from the fact I actually have Jewish DNA through my mom's side. But what's funny is, I would ask them, are you Jewish? Well, no, but I love it when people get offended for other people when those actual people are not offended. So with that being said, now 6 minutes into the video, the guy was black. The youth minister at the church I go to is black. Mid to late 20s. I looked at his hairline. I've never noticed a hairline such as this. Here's what it looked like. It looked like that. It was pointed down. So just to be clear, we all know what Norwood 2 looks like, right? Okay, so, well, this isn't the best visual for what I'm trying to accomplish here, but this is Norwood 2. Norwood 2 is when your hairline is not only receding in the temples, but also up here too, but you also, it's not rounded off yet. But when you look at somebody that's a true Norwood 2, what you're gonna see is a guy who has a hairline that is pointed like this. So it's gonna be a V, a perfect pointed V, not a rounded off one. The more rounded off, the more of a Norwood 3 it is. But Norwood 2 is a V shape like this. That's how it's gonna look. This is Norwood 1, this is Norwood 2, and then basically, how would I do a rounded shape? You know, a rounded would be Norwood 3, and then Norwood 4 is when this island detaches from the mainland, which mine is closer to detaching than you probably realize. But I've made other videos to point that out, which I can as well. When my hair's wet, I can show it more often, or if I'm outside. So what I'm here to say is, this guy seemed to have like a reverse Norwood 2. It was, instead of pointing up like this, like a V, it was like coming down like this. It had a pointed hairline that came down. So there's David Schwimmer, speaking of Jewish people, David Schwimmer from Friends. He has a very small forehead that's boxed in like this. And you could barely say he's Norwood 1 because his temples are barely even receded at all. His hairline's like this. Norwood 2's like this. But like, it was like a negative Norwood. It was like pointed like that. I've seen Mexican people, which I'm also of Mexican descent, by the way, but I've seen Mexican guys that have like a rounded off hairline like this, like it's just rounded down. But I've never seen someone with a pointed down like that. Reverse Norwood 2 is what I'm gonna call it. And I'm saying this because, and I do have some viewers that are black men, and I'm so glad that you're here. I recognize that different ethnic backgrounds, that's going to determine what kind of receding hairline you have, or you're balding. So like with the Norwood chart, this is largely focused for white men, and I would even say often for Indian men. But I've noticed that often with men who are Middle Eastern, Jewish, and then black men, they don't necessarily have these same sort of patterns. I've noticed that with black men specifically, and I've mentioned this before, something you'll see with them is it's like their hairline, it just like literally, it'll stay straight, but it'll just go back. Like, it's like it raises. So it's not like they have a receding hairline, they just have a raising hairline. So they'll bald this way. And I don't really see that with white men. With Middle Eastern men, I've seen where they have basically like diffuse thinning at the top of their head, and it's almost like someone cracked an egg on top of their head, and then it just slowly just like goes down like that. So that like the older they get, they still have hair and here, and maybe even their hairline's still intact, but it slowly just kind of goes like that. So I think that's interesting to point out. Like, just, yes, and see, that's what I always say. I am known for creating all these theories about predicting hair loss and all that. I'm always focused on the generalization, the general rule. And Norwood is great for generalizing hair loss. But I think specifically it helps white men, or men of European descent. I think it largely has more to do with that than anything. And we could even say like Asian, like Japanese guys, Chinese guys, they tend to not go bald until much later. But I've noticed that if anything else, they'll have diffuse thinning even if they have perfect hairline. So I definitely recognize that our ethnic backgrounds have everything to do with it. Now specifically, in case you don't know this about me, I'm not just, quote, 100% white. My dad is. His DNA test confirmed that he is 3/4 British and 1/4 German, which my last name is Shell, and that's a German last name. But my mom is not. My mom's, her mother was a first generation Mexican American, so we knew that part. But on her father's side, his father came here from Italy like 100 years ago. But the DNA test actually confirms, basically, it looks like he was something like half Spanish Jewish, and the other half was called West Asian. But if you look that up, it shows up as Iran, Iraq. So it's interesting because I'm a guy who, for all practical purposes, just looks like a white guy. But then I've also got the background going to Middle Eastern roots as well, and then also Spanish, and then also Native American on the Mexican side. So there's all that from my mom's DNA. So I'm not just typically a man who's just simply of European descent. I'm beyond that. And I think because I'm that way, it helps you recognize that our ethnic background has some effect on our hair loss pattern. I think that's important to know. And by the way, if what I just said sounds interesting to you, know that I do have a second channel called Family Friendly Daddy Blog. It's my other YouTube channel, and it more largely focuses on DNA test results and ethnic backgrounds and things like that. So if you're interested, feel free to check it out. Some of you already have. So there we go. We've had a great conversation, a great question. Such a simple question can lead to a 12.5-minute video. You know what to do, and that is leave your comment right here. It may be respawned. It may be rebooted into its own video, and then you will feel famous.